The training arena fell silent as Captain Arwen stepped through the reinforced doorway. The metallic clang of her boots against the obsidian floor echoed through the cavernous chamber, a sound that seemed to amplify in the stillness. Above her in the observation deck, the Vrexian instructors watched with predatory interest, their multiple eyes gleaming in the dim light. Arwen had known this moment would come. 3 months aboard the Vrexian War Academy vessel Talon's Edge, 3 months of careful diplomacy and cultural exchange, and it had all led to this. A test. The kind of test that determined whether humanity would be seen as equals in the Galactic Coalition, or merely as prey dressed in uniforms. In the center of the arena, 12 cubs waited. They were young Vrexians, barely past their first molt but already possessing the lethal grace of their species. Each stood nearly as tall as Arwen, their obsidian scales catching the harsh arena lights, their claws leaving shallow grooves in the floor. They were being trained as warriors, as hunters, as killers, and today, she was their exercise. Captain Arwen of Earth, Instructor Vector's voice boomed through the arena's speakers, his words carrying the weight of ancient tradition. You have requested to understand our ways, to prove that humans belong among the warrior races. Today you face the right of recognition. Survive and you earn our respect. Fail, and you prove what many already believe, that humanity is soft, weak, prey. Arwen's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. She'd learned that much about Vrexian culture. Action spoke louder than words. Always. Cubs, Vector commanded, his voice dropping to a guttural snarl. You know your purpose. You have trained for this since hatching. Before you stands prey. Hunt. Kill. Show us you are worthy of the warrior's path. The cubs shifted, their bodies tensing with predatory instinct. Arwen could see it in their eyes. The conflict between training and something else. Something they'd been learning these past months simply by watching her. She'd made it a point to visit the training halls, to watch them practice. She'd shown no fear, only respect. She'd brought them water after their drilling sessions when their instructors had walked past them lying exhausted on the floor. She'd spoken to them about Earth, about humanity's own struggles, about the predators that had once hunted her ancestors in the dark, and she'd shown them her scars. The cubs began to circle, as they'd been trained. Arwen stood still, her hands visible and empty, her breathing steady. She wouldn't fight them. Couldn't. Striking a Vrexian cub was a death sentence, politically and literally. This test was designed to be impossible. Survive without fighting back against 12 apex predators in training. Attack. Vector's voice cracked like a whip. The cubs lunged forward as one, and Arwen closed her eyes, accepting whatever came next. But the impact never arrived. She opened her eyes to find herself surrounded, not by attackers, but by guardians. The 12 cubs had formed a defensive circle around her, their backs to the human captain, their claws extended toward the observation deck. At the front, directly facing the instructors, stood Karul, the smallest of the group but the one who'd always watched Arwen with the most curiosity. His voice, still carrying the higher pitch of youth, rang out with surprising authority. No! The arena erupted in chaos. Alarms blared. The observation deck became a frenzy of movement as instructors shouted commands, their voices overlapping in dissonance. But the cubs didn't move. They pressed closer to Arwen, their scales forming an impenetrable wall of defiance. Karul! Vector's voice was no longer ceremonial, it was furious. You dare disobey? You dishonor your clutch, your lineage. Attack the prey or face permanent expulsion. Karul's claws dug deeper into the arena floor. She is not prey. She is human. She is weak. She is strong. Karul's words cut through the instructor's rage. She came to this arena knowing she would die. No weapon, no armor, no chance, and she came anyway. You taught us that a warrior faces death with honor. She has more honor than any of us, more than you. Another cub, Vaishra, spoke up from Arwen's left. She brought us water when you would not. She showed us her scars from her own world's predators. She did not beg. She did not plead. She stood ready to accept death without fighting cubs who could not defend themselves against her if she chose to fight back. You think she could harm you? Vector laughed, a sound like grinding stone. We know she could, Karul replied quietly. We have seen the records. Humans on Earth survived predators larger than our adults. They had no claws, no scales, no venom. just their minds and their refusal to surrender. They domesticated the wolves that hunted them. They turned prey animals into partners. They climbed to the top of their world's food chain with nothing but determination. Karul turned his head slightly, one eye meeting Arwen's. She could have brought weapons. Humans have them. She could have demanded the test be changed. But she understood what we needed to see, that she respects our ways, that she would face our challenge on our terms. That is not weakness, Instructor. That is the strongest thing I have ever witnessed. The arena had gone completely silent. Even the alarms had ceased. Arwen felt something in her chest tighten. She'd come here prepared to endure, possibly to die, definitely to fail this impossible test. She'd never imagined this. These young warriors sacrificing their future to defend a principle they'd learned from watching her. Karul, she said softly, her voice rough with emotion. You don't have to do this. Your future. You taught us something our instructors never could, Karul interrupted, still facing forward. That the strongest warrior is not the one who always attacks. It's the one who knows when to fight and when to protect, when to kill and when to shield. You stood in this arena alone, ready to die without taking a single one of us with you, knowing you could. That's the warrior I want to become. The door to the observation deck opened. Vector descended into the arena, his massive form casting long shadows. The cubs tensed but held their ground. The instructor approached slowly, his eyes fixed on the defensive formation. When he was close enough, he did something Arwen had never seen a Vrexian instructor do. He lowered his head, exposing his throat in a gesture of profound respect. You pass, Captain Arwen, he said, his voice carrying a note she couldn't quite identify. Pride? Shame? Both? Not because you survived, but because you taught our cubs something we could not. You showed them that true strength requires no claws. He raised his head, his gaze sweeping across the young Vrexians. And you, cubs, have taught this old warrior that perhaps our ways need not be the only ways. You have chosen to protect rather than attack. That is not weakness, that is evolution. Karul slowly lowered his defensive stance, and the other cubs followed suit. They parted, creating a path for Arwen toward the exit. As she walked through them, each cub touched her shoulder with their claws, not to harm, but to honor. At the doorway, Arwen paused and looked back at Karul. Thank you, she said simply. The young Vrexian's eyes gleamed. No, Captain. Thank you for showing us what humans really are. Not prey, not warriors. Something better. Protectors who know when to stand firm and when to show mercy. As Arwen left the arena, she heard Vector's voice behind her, addressing the cubs with new respect. Your training continues tomorrow. But today you have graduated from an even more important lesson. Later, when the Galactic Coalition formally accepted humanity as a warrior race, the Council cited the incident in the arena as the turning point. But those who were there knew the truth. It wasn't Arwen who'd won humanity's place among the stars. It was 12 young Vrexians who'd looked at a human and seen not what she was, but what she could inspire others to become. And in the end, that was the most human thing of all.